Hello everyone, welcome back to another Doctor Who related video. In today's Doctor Who related video, I'm taking a look at the War Games. Explosions everywhere, in colour. The latest black and white story to get the recolorization treatment, the first being the Daleks in colour. Now we have Patrick Troughton's final outing as the Doctor, the story that concludes Season 6 of Doctor Who, the last black and white story, the War Games. So before I talk about the actual colorization itself of the War Games, I think it's important to sort of talk about where I'm coming from with the War Games. What do I think of the War Games as a story, as a foundation, and then we'll build up to the elements, whether that would be the music, the recolorization, and all the bits in between, really, with it. I think the War Games is a brilliant story. It might be 10 episodes, and that might be incredibly daunting, but my goodness, it's brilliant, isn't it? I think that it's perfectly plotted. I think there might be a lot of escape and capture, and we must go over here, oh, we're captured, we must escape. There's a lot of that, but that's classic Doctor Who, and that's why we love it. And when you get to sort of the final 2 episodes, and you've got the Doctor, Jamie and Zoe running back across no man's land to the TARDIS, and time's freezing around, it's just incredibly tense and thrilling, and then bam, there are the Time Lords. It adds a lot to the mythology of Doctor Who, and it, you know, with that in mind, it makes perfect sense for it to get sort of a modernisation, a spruce up for, you know, a new generation to experience this story. I think in terms of the War Games in colour, I think it's an improvement over the Daleks in colour, but I think that it still has some of the same issues. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think with the Daleks in colour, I enjoyed it up until 2/3, and then it just became montage central just to sort of get through some of the stuff here. And I think with the War Games, it still has the same issues. I've watched this twice, but I still enjoyed the overall package of it, because I think with these colorizations, for me, this is just how I view them. I enjoy them as a spectacle, going, oh wow, that's 1960s Doctor Who in colour. I think that's what I enjoy. These colorizations for me are not the definitive versions of the show, the episodes. You know, there will always be the originals. The BBC isn't doing a George Lucas where the original War Games and the Daleks disappear and that's it. That is, you know, these are now the definitive versions. We're not getting that, so, you know, the originals are safely there for us to watch and enjoy, and I think these are just little curios. The first aspect I want to talk about is the colorization itself. I think the colorization for me is the standout of the War Games in colour. I think the transition into the actual colorization itself was skillfully done, with it being the old BBC ident, transitioning into sort of the Earth, and then we're into no man's land. I think that this very much takes the sort of criticisms people had with the Daleks in colour, with the sort of oversaturation, and really sort of hamming home that this is in colour. Like, just look at Barbara's shirt, you know, bright hot pink, you know, good for Barbara, but it didn't really seem very Barbara-esque, I guess. So I think that this is a much more natural sort of colorization. I think maybe because you've got these uniforms, military uniforms, so I guess that the work's already done there for you. But I think the also the sort of skin tones feel more natural. So I think that the colorization itself was beautiful. I really like some of the creative choices within the actual colorization itself, like the Time Lord lighting, and sort of the whole sort of war room sort of environment. I thought that was all brought to life excellently. So I think the colorization, like I say, I enjoyed the spectacle, and that was, you know, the highlight for me within this edit. I think the film sequence, the newly found film sequence of sort of the Doctor and Jamie and Zoe arriving in no man's land and exploring, was such a great sort of cinematic way to open the story. It just looks so crisp and brilliant. So yeah, I loved that. I think that really added that nice sort of I guess burst of energy within there, and going, wow, that's 1960s Who looking like it was filmed today. I think that was a really lovely thing to see. And one thing I did notice with the recolorization, I don't know if it's just my eyes playing tricks on me, but I did notice from certain sequences, whether it's different sort of recolorization teams, I don't know, but Patrick Troughton's shirt sort of changed vibrancy. It was either this very dark blue or of a sort of a baby blue, sort of pale blue colour. Maybe that's because it was natural lighting when it was on location. I don't know. But that was just a little thing I noticed. Like, it didn't detract or anything. It was just like, I've gone, oh, his shirt's changed a little bit. I mean, Patrick Troughton's costume's fallen apart anyway in the War Games. The edit is the skeleton of the War Games. This is where it either rides or dies. And when you look at the War Games being 10 episodes and it being cut down to 90 minutes, and each part's going to be roughly 9 to 10 minutes, and then you have this new sequence of the regeneration, which I'll talk about in a minute. I guess you're already sort of apprehensive about how it will work. You know, you're going to expect casualties of war with this, and I think the edit, it worked to a point. I think that it didn't go montage heavy. I think it did great with sort of the explaining the plan, and you see the plan in action while they explain the plan. I think that was great. But I think when you reached the American Civil War zone, I think that's when the edit really started to buckle. And I think, you know, when you're introducing sort of the resistant fighters, there wasn't really an introduction to it, because you've just got these group of people there. I guess you can make the assumption that, you know, Lady Jennifer and Jay went off with the resistance group, but I think it just went a bit, it just became very clunky. And I think when you started to introduce War Room and everything, I think that's when I started to notice a lot of jumping and cutting, and I think that's when it started to really sort of rush through the story. And I think it was rushing through so we could get to you know, the trial sequence, and you know, that's the big thing, the grand thing with this story. But it did seem to sort of really rush through to get to that. I think if the War Games was, you know, maybe 2 hours long, probably would be a more cohesive experience, because I think there were little bits where I was like, I've seen the War Games, I know what's happened, but even I'm starting to go, what just happened? So I think the edit, it worked to a point, but like I say, it's sort of that middle area where it's just sort of really snapping all over the place within it, where I think that for me it just kind of failed a little bit. One thing what I really enjoyed about this edit was the regeneration. Now, I know that the regeneration probably can be under a bit of criticism with this sort of yellow energy, sort of homogenizing regeneration, that it's all the same. And yeah, I can kind of agree with that, because I love the classic regenerations, how they were so varied, because it's sort of TV history, it's them sort of learning new technology, and it's sort of a progression of, you know, television history, really, isn't it? But this regeneration, you know, I'm a massive Third Doctor fan. He's my favourite Doctor, and I loved it. I think the fan edit by Confession Dial, who worked on this, it was great to see that idea implemented within it. I think this regeneration did get a little bit of criticism with saying, hey, this is AI. I think AI might have been used to enhance some of the footage, but it wasn't an AI deepfake Pertwee at all. Because being the Pertwee fanboy that I am, I was like, that bit when the Third Doctor first appears, that's from Inferno episode 7, when he's sort of in the coma state. And then, you know, you've got a lot of bit from Inferno when he's sort of leaning out of a chair. So yeah, it's all from Inferno. It's all, so yeah, it's fine. It's not a deep fake. It is cleverly used footage of Jon Pertwee. So yeah, that gets a thumbs up. That's a really lovely treat. It would have been great to have had, you know, a little season 7 little trailer. And it was lovely to have introducing the Doctor, Jon Pertwee, like continuing sort of the new series tradition of introducing the next Doctor. So that was really neat. So let's move on to another aspect of the War Games in colour, the music. Mark Ayres is a creative genius when it comes to restoring the audios for the animations and the collection range. So what did I think of the music for the War Games in colour? Well, you couldn't miss it, could you, with how loud it was? I think that was the big thing, that it was very overpowering in places where you sort of lost some of the dialogue, what was being said within the scene. And I think one bit what I noticed in particular was when the ambulance entered the American Civil War zone. This is when I probably, you know, when, like I said, the edit really buckled. You can hear the original score of the War Games when Carstairs is defending the ambulance against the American Civil War soldiers. You can hear the da, 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 that quite jolly, you know, triumphant music, where you've got Marquez's score of like quite action, quite tense, and you can just hear the original score underneath, and you're like, oh, it doesn't blend, and it doesn't work. So yeah, that was a little bit, but I think there was some nice pieces of music with like the Time Lords and sort of the whole trial sequence. I liked that, and there was some nice, powerful like when the music wasn't there, you really got the sense of power and atmosphere. So I think when the music was used, it kind of lessened some of the impacts of the scenes. And I think, you know, they really need to sort out the balancing of the music with these. But one thing I have to talk about, I don't know if you know, the War Chief is the master. I don't know if you've noticed, it was very subtle with the Saxon music played, which didn't quite fit in places of the scene. Like, some bits of the music fitted that sequence, but when it carried on, it didn't work within the actual scene placement itself. What do I think of this sort of revision? I personally have never been a fan of the War Chief being the master. Just because he's got the Delgado suit and he's got a beard doesn't make him the master, alright? No, I'm not having that. Terrance Dicks has, you know, written, you know, his original fiction books all play in the sandboxes of, you know, State of Decay, Five Doctors, and the War Games, and he's done stories with the War Chief, and he didn't even mention that. Oh yeah, he's the master. No, I have never been a fan of the idea. I can see that they're really playing hard with this edit, that he is the master. I think when you do that and you introduce that, oh, he is the master, it makes the whole Doctor universe just feel ever so small that everyone could be the master, what the Doctor encounters. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that. We even get a glimpse, well, a sort of tease of the regeneration with the sound going off, sound effects of the regeneration. Yeah, I'm not a fan of it, and I think, yeah, even though you're using the Delgado music, which, you know, great to hear, and the Saxon theme, I'm still not buying it. Including thoughts on the War Games in colour. Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for the most part. I think that it was an improvement over the Daleks in colour, and I think that you can see that each colorization gets better and better. So I'm definitely interested to see how they would tackle a four-parter. You know, I think that would be interesting to see how that works. But like I say, this being a 10 episode story, there's going to be casualties with the edit, and I think, like I say, the edit works to a point and then it starts to buckle and rush towards the end of the story. I think the colorization, like I say, is the highlight of this piece. A lot more natural compared to the Daleks in colour. I think some of the revisions within this story, like I say, the regeneration, big fan. The including of Gallifrey on the scanner was neat. The Doctor's future incarnations, very much for the fans. But yeah, it was a neat moment. I didn't mind that. I know a lot of people are a bit sort of, why are they doing that? That's fine, it was fine. The War Chief being the master, not a fan, never will be. But yeah, the music, in part it worked, but I think they really need to sort of work on the sort of balancing of it, because it can be quite overpowering within the actual story, where you lose some of the drama within the scene because the music is trying to emote these feelings, where you're like, just let the scene play out, let the scene do the talking, and I will feel the emotions are meant to within it. Because I think there are some nice pieces of music within it. It's just that it can be overpowering at times, where you sort of lose some of the drama within the actual scenes itself. So yeah, the War Games in colour, I'm going to give it a thumbs up. I enjoyed it. I've pre-ordered the Steelbook, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that. The new special features, the new film sequence, like I say, in episode 1 was brilliant. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but it was just a fun curio to watch. Yes, thank you very much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for plenty more Doctor related content coming up in the near future, and I'll see you next time. Let me know your thoughts on the War Games in colour, whether you enjoyed it or whether it should have been destroyed in a bombardment. of shells. Who knows? So yes, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.